we're back, part two with Sheena Sharp. Continue. Okay, Sheena, the question I asked you, what do you think of the word affordable housing? We've used it so many times. What's your take on that? It's like the magic word we use when
You
selling
know
something.
what? At some point, you just have to face the fact that poor people are not bad people. And why do I say that? Because we just keep changing the words, right?
Yes.
Social housing. Oh, that gets a bad name. Let's call it something else, you know? And I worked for ages for, we were doing a housing cost study with one of the big developer associations. The OAA was participating in this. And they kept saying, we can't call it affordable housing. We have to call it housing people can afford. Okay. We'll try to remember to say that. I was doing some work in a municipality north of here, and we were trying to get an affordable housing project through, and everybody hated it, right? Because they think, oh, somehow there are a group of people who are poor and undesirable, and we just don't want to have anything to do with them, right? So I was saying, well, guys, let's look at the demographics here. Most of the people who we have on our social housing list in this area, something like 75% of them were over 65. So they're seniors. And something like 80% of those guys were women. And why? Because those guys were the women who in 1960s were making 60% of what their husbands were making. Their husbands are dead. They have no pension. If they're lucky, they have a little bit of his pension. And in this particular case, it's rural. So they're living in the woods. And when they get so that they're nervous about driving at night or something, they just start eating really bad food because they can't get anywhere, right? Those are the people we're trying to get housing for. And one of the people in the audience who I knew said, oh, that's my grandmother. Like, no shit, people.
Oh my God.
Like these people don't get, like, the community is broad. If you don't want to be making lattes yourself at your local Starbucks, then maybe the people who work there should be able to live close by. Maybe we need to be able to live in mixed communities. Maybe we, that it becomes really, really important. Maybe we need to be able to have, like I was saying at the doorstep in the municipal election, saying, like, we need complete communities. We need places for people to move out to their very first home. We need a family starter home. We need family grow homes. We need downsizing homes. You don't want to, like, I was talking to a guy and saying, you really want to drive an hour to see your grandchildren? He said, actually, it's 3 hours I have to drive.
Oh, yeah.
Like your kids, people say, oh, well, they're going to move to Barrie or Owen Sound, all great places. Okay. Nothing wrong with Barrie, nothing wrong with Owen Sound. But suddenly we're all moving around. Your kids move to Calgary, your parents move to Owen Sound. What does that do for your life? It means you better like your car because you're going to be driving a lot. Like someone described it to me in a really interesting way. They said, let's say you were having a family meal and you put the salad in one room and the main course in another, the dessert in another, drinks in another. So people had to walk from room to room to fill up their plates. That's how we live. We have our kids over here because it's economically based. So as you make more money, get a little bit of a foothold as you get older, you can afford to move here, then you can afford to move there. This is craziness. We need complete communities that have something for everybody within walking distance. It's something for and it is your family we're talking about. We're not talking about some undesirable people who are going to rent these places. It's your kids who are going to rent these places. Come on, people. So I know I'm sort of like ranting and raving when all you said was affordable housing.
Oh, no, I like it. I like hearing it.
You really have to think about like more like a community system, because so everybody has their limit for what they can afford.
Yeah.
And so housing people can afford. Okay. But we have to look at the people within our community and what they're making and figure out how to get housing that's affordable to the whole range of those people. And no, they're not undesirable.
And then also, you're talking segregation here about the whole, sorry, got blank here. Segregation here, right? About the whole community thing. Okay, one question is, who can afford affordable housing? Like who can afford affordable housing, right?
Oh, you mean by the definitions that the
Yeah.
province?
Like, can you afford,
Okay,
can you afford affordable housing? Are you that category to get in there?
mostly it's not means tested. Like the government, the federal government sets the definition for affordable housing, right? So for example, my project in Sudbury has to meet that definition. And that means you take the average wage in the community, then you divide it by 3, and then you make 80% of that. So that would be affordable. And at the same time, you have to be 90% of the average going rate, both of those things, okay? The problem is that when you have a broad spectrum of people, like if you define it like that, and you're defining it around average, when you have a broad spectrum of people, there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are not going to be able to afford it, or they will afford it. They're just going to be spending more than 30% of their income, maybe 50 or 60%, right? So again, I go back to the, I'm very suspicious of some of these ideas when they talk about, inclusive housing. So you have to have so much housing with a building at a lower rate.
Oh, yeah.
Which just means the people who are paying market rate are paying more market rate.
Yeah.
And there's very few levels of people in this whole system that can afford market rate anyway. So we're just making it higher, right?
Talking about the promises when they make I forgot what's the thing's called, but you get a condo built and you get so much for affordable housing percentage, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
What's
And
the
inclusionary zoning is what they talk about.
Yeah.
And one of the things they're talking about is they're saying, well, you don't have to, you know what development charges are, right? So they won't have to, the affordable units won't have to pay development charges, which is a big deal. Like in our project in Sudbury, we were paying $600,000 development charges, which is a lot of money for 56 units, right?
Yeah.
And so you look at that and you say, and people say, well, the new housing should pay for all the infrastructure. No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. And property taxes are going to have to go up. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
You think it should have gone up a long time ago? They haven't.
I think they probably should have gone up a long time ago. We should probably make that calculation more transparent so people can understand, because the idea of development charges has always been they're paying for the extra capacity that the new development would put on the services in the area, right? But at some point, the area needs more than maintenance. It needs, like if something's 50 years old, you're going to have more sewer pipes going out than they were when they were built, right?
Yeah.
There comes a point where the maintenance starts to ramp up. And I think that there also comes a point where we have to say, what is the balance in the city? Like we need, there's less and less people living in the single family homes because there's not as much turnover. There's not as many young families. There used to be 5 people through kids to adults, not anymore.
Housing's down now. Like we just did a report the other day. I got buddies in the condo building development. I got a lot of guys working. Foreman, I've talked to guys. They all none of them know each other. They all say the same thing. We're building empty condos. They're using for what do you call it? Bed and breakfast? What do you call it, term?
Airbnb.
Airbnb. Yeah, they're empty. They say we're building these condos. They got one guy's son is building Richmond Hill. I think 3 condos. Take him another 2 years to build the other one. He said, "Is there just building empty air? It's not being filled. So all this demand is not as much as they think or as they thought."
Do you think that I think the city passed a bill, a bylaw against Airbnb.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought it seemed fairly effective to me.
yeah,
And I think, there's a lot of speculation. And I know when I was door knocking in the part of the riding north of here, like all of the rental apartments are absolutely full. In my word, I'm just telling you about, what I can see as I'm knocking on doors. But the housing to the north is not. And I was canvassing with a friend who lived there. And she said, Sheena, like we can go out walking at night and we don't see anybody. Like, a lot of people or some people, they like to, after dinner, they like to go for a little walk, get some exercise. And they would say, we don't see any people in our neighborhood anymore. And part of that is because real estate, when the world is so topsy-turvy, even if you own your house, even if you are moving out of the city, it's like a safe place to keep your money, right? Some of them are Airbnbs, the houses north of the city, existing houses. Some of them are Airbnbs, but some of them are just empty. And that has to do with the tax incentives or the way that our taxes is structured. I don't know if you realize it, but Mike Morris with the Federal Green Party, he has a bill before Parliament where he's trying to change the tax system so that you have to pay like business tax on profits if you sell a house that it's already there, but he wants to make it stricter. So it becomes less attractive for people to buy houses as investments so that more people can live there. I personally believe that I think the big thing about, it's not so much renting, but the big thing about, two things about housing. One is tenure. And when you're renting right now, anyway, like I know I hate moving, but the idea that someone could come along and say, oh, you're out. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, repaint it, put in a new fridge, get a new tenant at twice the amount. So if you don't have security of tenure, your life is a little bit at risk, right? And one thing ownership gives you is security of tenure. And years ago, like in the 90s, one of my friends who had been a World War II vet, so he was 90 then, he's gone now, but he bought one of the first condos in Toronto. And it was for poor people. He had left the army. He didn't have a lot of money. He bought into this building. It's 40 Homewood, which is right downtown. I don't know if you know Homewood. That's the first condo in Toronto. And he bought, and a bunch of other people who were also poor bought units in this building, right? And at the beginning, it was very community oriented. I think that kind of changed with the property management system is a little bit iffy in condos. I think that's something that the government should pay attention to. But he said, so all of these people bought these condos and suddenly their lives are stable, right? You don't have to move. All you have to do is figure out how to keep paying the mortgage, which was extremely reasonable. So as long as you can do that, you're not on the street. And he said that there were people, he had made a lot of money investing and doing other things. He said there are many people in this building who are millionaires. There are other people who bought in, pay their rent through their pensions, and they spend their time talking to their cats, knitting and watering the plants. And that's fine, right? Whatever they want to do with their lives, it's your life. It's your time to spend. But no one in that building who bought in originally ended up on the street again. No one. Because you have a secure place. And so that's, I think, what we really have to, when we talk about housing, it's not just affordability, it's stability, it's access to services around you, it's all of these ideas. And so it's so important to push all of this stuff at the same time.
amazing.
And that's why I think either nonprofits or co-ops, they give stability because they have no interest in kicking people out to get higher rents, right? So unless you run through the hall screaming naked, they're not going to kick you out. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, if we have that, like, people should be able to buy into condos we need to reform the Condominium Act. I know they did a little bit of it about 3 years ago, but reform the Condominium Act to give people more control. The good thing about nonprofits and co-ops is they tend to be like, because it's not owned by the residents, they tend to be a little bit more stable. I mean, when I say more stable, one of the professors in the architecture school at U of T said, one of the problems with condos is that they're run by amateurs, smart amateurs, but amateurs. So he said, it's kind of like getting onto a 747 with with a pilot that's only been certified on like a propeller plane, right? Will they be able to land? Probably. But would you get on the plane? And then you see some of the things that are happening in condos, like, people pay more attention to the decoration than they pay to the heating systems and all of those kinds of things, which is really important for the long term. But a lot of people don't understand these things because they're too complex. So what am I saying? So I'm saying we really need better governance, easier governance in the condos. We need to pay attention to that, but we need to also pay attention to how to give people stable housing, long-term.
Laugh when I talk about the condos, and they always advertise the condos. They always show the lovely lobby. It's so beautiful. And I always say, like, okay, why you showing? I'm not gonna live there, Why are we looking at it? Every ad also got a nice lobby, or nice lounge area when you walk in the apartment. Like, tell me how people look at their buddies in the condos and just hang out in the lobby, or no, I don't want to go to your condo. Let's go hang out in the nice lounge over there. It's beautiful. It was advertised,
It looks nice. Looking nice is okay. It's worth something, but take a look at the mechanical room and see what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Let's consider it friendly. I was gonna ask you a question back to the B&B. Do you remember a while back, son, he wanted to move his father in, and they had a little like a little house or a shack in the back of the backyard, and he wanted to get it approved. He wanted his father like right there. I shot his backyard. It's just I was a little house or whatever, like a shack, but it had everything. It was all passed, certified and all that. But the city wouldn't sign off on it. Do you remember that?
No, and I know that at one point the city was forced into those garden units, and I believe that they're legal everywhere in the city right now. I know I was talking to a guy on Lawrence who had been through the ringer trying to get one before it was legal, and I told him, like, the province has just passed it. They have to let you do it now. Yeah. You don't have to fight them anymore, right? Yeah. So that's another way of intensifying, to have the secondary suite in a different unit in the backyard.
Oh yeah, like there's quite a few I've seen. Like when I did canvassing in Etobicoke and Keele area. There's lots of it there. Like I asked people, I said, "Is this approved?" They said, "Hell no." I said, "We're not going to tell anybody." So I'm not. It's fine with me, But that's what it's come down to, And they're all relatives living in the backyard, the shacks. I saw quite a few. Like actually, those the backyard sheds. They actually had 2 or 3 together to make it like livable. They put heating, electricity, cable, everything. I said, "Who lives here?" She says, "My mother lives here with her boyfriend." Because they can't afford anywhere else, and we don't want to put them in a home because that's expensive too.
Exactly.
Homes are expensive, Like my mother's got so many senior friends, and like they just one son just took his mom out of the seniors home. She was paying like $6,000 a month.
Yes.
And now he's living. He got a room for her, so he put her there. So he's taking her money and invested it rather than taking it for himself, which is nice. But I'm just saying, $6,000 for and that's just one example. My mom has another. They're rich. They spend $16,000 a month for 2 of them, and they've got 6 kids and so many grandkids. But they got money. I mean, they want to live there. It's high end. Yeah. I ask you, where's $16,000 going on senior citizens? Seriously.
One of my friends, they got together. there were 3 brothers and a sister, and the sister was the oldest and more frail. Like, and so the brothers got together and said, okay, we can put her in one of these $6,000 a month places, or we can rent a 2-bedroom apartment and we can hire like a nanny.
Yeah.
And they, give the nanny a computer, because a lot of these, the nannies in Canada are people like from the Philippines.
Oh, yeah.
They're here on a work contract, and they sort of work to get permanent residency. So you give people a computer and internet so they can talk to their families, they can do this. And that is way cheaper and way better. Like, so you give people like an Uber account so they can go out to lunch, they could do these things to me, and that you're still way under the $6,000 a month, right? At some point, I mean, my own mom is thinking that she might want to, she's always said she didn't want to go into a home yet. She would do that when she's less mobile. And it's on, COVID has really hurt her and a lot of her friends a lot, because they didn't get as much exercise, they weren't out as much, and so their bodies have sort of slowed down more quickly, right? And so now she's saying, okay, well, I'd rather go into some place because then I can, there's someone to have lunch with, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to go outside and in order to meet people, and otherwise I just get lonely. And I can see that, but where is she going? She's going into a nonprofit, right? And a nonprofit that's been there for a long time. My mother could never afford $6,000 a month.
No.
But
she,
she,
a lot of these seniors back then, when they moved into condos back then, they had no pensions. And now,
oh, exactly. Or you have CPP, right?
Yeah, but it's only so much CPP.
Yeah.
And also the other one, right?
OA. And so, yeah. I mean, I think it's really tricky, and it's really tricky partly because housing is not just like some people call it warehousing. We're warehousing our seniors. Yes, we are, because we have this medical model for long-term care homes as opposed to like it's your home, guys. It's a residence. It shouldn't be like the Marines or something, right? Everyone gets up at the same time. Everyone makes their bed. Everyone goes for breakfast. Like, are you kidding me?
Hey, that'd be a good senior home. Military runs a military senior home, actually.
Exactly, but that's what they are, right? You're supposed to go for dinner after dinner.
Stand at attention. Check out your teeth.
There was one in Montreal that I thought was really interesting, had possibilities. And I've been thinking about this. Like, if I ever got to run one of these things, I would try this. So they had a restaurant. And they had it on the ground floor, right? So the people who lived there could just go and eat at the restaurant, like they had meal tickets, but people from the public could also come in and eat at the restaurant. Yeah. And that kind of makes sense to me because, I was working doing a development plan for a long-term care home and looking at the cost of the food. And that's when everyone comes down and eats at the same time. In the same community, I was working for a restaurant and they serve way more meals. They have a menu of like 20 items. You can pick anything you want. And I talked to the guy who was running the long-term care, and I said, well, why aren't we doing something like this? And he said, well, Sheena, it's kind of like the rules. Like we have to, there's nutrition and this and that. He says, it's almost like the revenge of your kids. They show up and they say, well, are there enough peas in this diet? Like you're 90, eat French fries, go for it. Like, what's the problem here?
I gotta have my Yosels hangout crap on the COVID bed. We met, there's like 5 of us. And one of the guys, a gentleman, he works for the Toronto District School Board, and he goes around different schools promoting nutrition. And he says to me, I didn't know, he said, Canada is one of the few countries, maybe not the only one, does not have a nutritional guy, a national nutrition guy. We have a food guy, but not a nutrition guy. And he said, I told him, you know what, if you want to do it, let's work together and let's start something up. I'd rather have that. Because we have a nutrition guy, like you said,
Yeah.
the calories and all. We have food guide, little pictures and all that. That's fine, but that's not nutrition. That's just guideline, right? But
Yeah.
I was surprised. He said Canada, and he's talking from experience working 15 years with the school board. He says, I grew up promoting with special needs. Also, I talked about ODSP. I was promoting with the election.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like I talked to Isabel's on ODSP. We talked about nutrition. Like you get the cheap stuff to go there. It's not nutrition, like Dollarama, right? They get like carbs are like 1 point something for a good carb, like a good pasta brand. When you go to a cheaper
Yeah.
brand like Dollarama, you're not getting that same. So that's what he says. That's when if you have a nutrition program, they got to implement it in the government. So if you're going to feed poverty in ODSP, you have to go by this guide that's stated there. You cannot just let them go buy garbage or, even treat them like garbage, right? Even if people, I talked to some people on disabilities that have a dietary problem, and it's you can see the frustration. I said, let me see if I can help you out and give you something that we've done before. We're just feedback. We're just totem poles for advertisements. I said, you know what they said like lactose intolerance,
Yeah.
gluten free, but like
You get extra. You get extra money for that.
yeah, I
Not
know.
a lot.
No,
Not
no,
enough.
but it's
But you
not
get
in
extra
the.
money for that.
It's really surprised when I talked in the election with one of the candidates. It's surprised that with all the food banks, this is my idea. Like in the election, I said, why don't we have a coalition, like a website, and also put aside for dietary needs because there's so many
Have you
people.
ever have you ever taken a look at the stop?
Yeah,
They have three parts, right?
yeah,
They have emergency food. So they have like a soup kitchen. Classically, it would be called a soup kitchen, right? You go in, you can get a meal. It's like a restaurant, right? And then they have a food bank. And then they have gardens. And so you can grow your own food. And there comes a community of people who are growing their own food. And they have like classes and education and that sounds kind of boring and do-gooding, but like the one that's up on St. Clair there at Witchwood Barns. So they essentially said, yeah, well, we get people who are kind of from the same backgrounds. And so they'll like they'll grow food and cook food that is sort of fit to an Italian menu. And then people will like cook and share their ideas with other people who have different backgrounds, right? So they're growing different things. And so it's not as like, you have to think of things as a community and enjoyment and sharing things community again, and being able to develop things and engage your mind with things and have fun with things, right?
Did you see I did a 2-video part on a couple from Lisbon, Portugal. Did you see the part then?
No.
They had a whole thing. They did 5 different cities around Europe. They talked about housing, planning, food
Yes.
growing. Yeah, if you can check it out, I had an interview with them. I pulled them up. I messaged them. It was great. It's just so insightful. I tell that idea to people they're laughing like, really? You're gonna go fruit on a roof? Like, what's so wrong with that? They got greening on City Hall, so what's the big deal? I mean, to them, I don't know. It seems they're reminded in such a way, and people say like, we see this in Europe, like we can't do this over here. Why not? Because we're a climatized city. We're go by climates. We had one of our university debate. We had food is my thing because I had a plan for food distribution. I took it off one of the second harvest lady. I forgot her name, but I want to talk to her. But that category came during the university. There's none of us mere candidates. And everybody had the category, but they were touched on food. And that was my thing. So I explained in detail my plan. I laid down a picture how it can be done. It's done in Europe. It's done overseas. It's done. I said I explained in the video. It can be done because they were arguing that you can't grow stuff on the ground when it's cold, but it's thermal. You can build. It's over there. They do it in Europe. It's thermal. The ground. I said the ground is only so deep. I've dug into this. You go further down. The ground is warm, right? But you bring that warmth up and you grow. It's done. It's already been done. Why can't it be?
It's absolutely already been done, and they're absolutely like I can find you plans for that, right?
Yeah.
So they're like half sunken greenhouses because you only have to go down around 4 to 5 feet.
See? So you're the only one talking about, right?
So once you're there and you insulate the sides and you put in the glass. So, but you can't grow everything. Like it's not going to be tropical in there.
The thing. Yeah.
But you can grow certain crops over the winter and then different crops in the summertime.
I mean, we've got greenhouses for flowers. Why can't we have for vegetables, right?
Exactly. Why can't we have it for vegetables? Because it's cheaper
Yeah.
it's cheaper like from California and it's cheaper from Florida. So I get that the cost of food is important. We do apparently pay less for food than anywhere else in the world,
Yeah.
right? So and partly we start to lose quality for that.
Have you been to No Frills lately?
I my office is right beside a No Frills. I'm
There's
at
one
No
over
Frills.
here. People got mad because I not buying local. Because I went there. There's one over, No Frills. Seriously, I've been like since Christmas.
Yeah.
You'll buy a cucumber on sale. It's in your hand. It's like oozing out of your hand. Like, come on, you
Yeah.
selling this really? So I said, I'm gonna go to
Yeah.
Walmart and buy American or whatever, and they get mad. But you know what? I gotta save money. I know. I'm not gonna pay $1.29 for a soggy cucumber. Go get 88 cents at Walmart. You're on a budget. People don't realize.
It becomes a balance. Like everything can't cost money. We need to lower the price of housing.
No.
We need to we will need to spend more for food because we're going to have to be growing it ourselves, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
I lived in Montreal. I put that in talking about my platform. They have community gardens. They have a system set up where people can grow like a neighborhood, say like down Rosedale. People can
yeah,
but the government sponsors, they give us seed packages or what vegetables or fruit or whatever. You can sell it, grow in your backyard, sell it for yourself, make a profit. And you also sign with there's a website, local restaurants can sign up and they can see what the list, and then people are locally gardening, growing, you're like, oh, they want
and
this. And so
feeding those restaurants.
exactly, you're feeding each
Yeah.
other, you're cycling, but you're also making money for yourself as an income. You're feeding the
Yeah.
community, and it's a lot cheaper than going to a big grocery store and getting soggy cucumbers, right? It's done in
Well,
Montreal.
yeah. And the other way to do it is to say, okay, guys, I've got a backyard. It's a bowling alley. I just got a lot of trees in it, so it's almost a forest. But part of it could be farmed, right? So I'll rent you like for a small amount.
Yeah.
Maybe tomatoes, maybe paid in tomatoes, not
Yeah.
sure. But for a small amount, you can garden here because I'm going to be working over there. And every time I try to garden something, it either dies or the raccoons eat it or
But I remember when I used to bike in Montreal, I had a routine. After work, I go with my little bag, my buggy, and they had like in French, all the different sides, tomatoes, some have flowers, vegetables, some having like sometimes even had meat, like they're frozen, right? But it was only for the day. So I buy it and and it costs like so much. It's like, and it's all listed all on the web. You go to certain neighborhoods where they have it available. It's all routine.
yeah.
Right? And you give money to the tenant or the owner. They got some money for themselves. They recycle it. And then I talked to them. They said a lot of stuff we have over, like say we got like too many tomatoes. We don't want to waste it. So we sign up with the website for the local restaurants and branches.
Yeah.
Food banks, also food banks, also people with special needs. It's all listed there, and then we just give the produce.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's fresh fruit. Let's go. We need to have that year because right now, like you said, we're starving. And the lady at Harvard said last year they spent what 900 million wasted in food because there's no distribution. That's why I did this plan about the election. Have a distribution. There's a warehouse, but they say we don't want a warehouse. It's all cost efficient. But you know what?
But this is also like capitalism and the fact that we're so far apart.
Yeah.
Because what some of the food stores were saying was, well, we have these the people who are selling us vegetables, they want to sell it to us all year long. So if we want it in the winter, we have to buy it in the summer. That means we can't buy local produce.
Yeah.
So then the local produce has to go through these, and the local produce goes through these like farmers markets and whatever. And I know they do get some local produce in our big stores, but the fact that it gets controlled, that we built up this system, that means we're so far away from our food. We're so, it's really frustrating and it's so fragile. Like it's only going to take a couple more years. Now California is flooding now, right? Yeah. It's only going to take a couple more years of disaster.
In Ukraine, we couldn't get any. What was it? Was what the flour?
They make wheat, yeah, but so do they grow wheat, but so do we. We grow. We export a lot of wheat, right? Yeah. Except because I'm from Manitoba, right? And so last year, the year before, like 30% of the crops failed.
Yeah.
Like this is climate change. We are coming into a really tough time. We're not doing anything about it. And we're not strategically looking about how to protect ourselves. And this is why I'm running, right? Why I keep running, because I don't see them doing it. I see them like the NDP, lovely people. No, every time you try to stop a pipeline, the Steelworkers Union stands up and says, you can't do that. You have to, no, well, there's so many of these little impediments to actually changing this thing.
Yeah.
That we need. This is why I decided to throw my lot in with the Green Party, because the idea is more that we need a planet first. We can have a thriving economy and a social system and community, but it has to be built on a healthy planet.
Yeah.
We have to do that. And the way that they're doing it, the NDP, for example, it's like jobs, jobs, jobs. And if it happens to work out, well, maybe we'll address the climate. Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I was
Right.
gonna pick your brain about this my views on all these climate groups. I've signed on with conferences and different ones. I'm not gonna name names, but honestly, I think it's a waste of time. Nothing's getting done. I mean, it's all like, hey, we got a climate group. We need some money from the government. Support us. There's a guy on like Twitter. His name's something Clark. He's also
Not John Clark.
yeah.
He's with the Ontario Poverty Reduction. That guy?
Yeah, with the gray hair. He just had I talked to him on the message. He just had to go from a shoulder operation. I want to do an interview with him, right? But I said I want to get you on. But he said like his tweets are all like it's all a farce. He says it. This is all a gimmick. The whole climate thing. That's what he's saying. One guy says the opposite. Another guy, but this guy says this is the whole thing about the UN. He's very honest with what he says. I like I mean, whether I agree with it or not, but I just like how he's pretty upfront with the whole con game.
What does he say?
He says this whole climate affecting the whole planet. He says you got to be. He breaks it down realistic. We have natural gases at this time for temperature. I haven't seen all the tweets yet, but if you go to his website, it explains it all. But he said basically it's a whole farce. Government's getting money for nothing. There's a whole it's called like a conspiracy, the economical deceit. But he said there's no climate emergency. That's what he said. There's no climate emergency. The planet happens on its natural resource. He puts it. Go to his website. I took a look at it, and it's
He's lying. He's lying.
That's what I'm saying. Go to his website. You got to check it out and see what he says. Right? There's two guys. There's Clark. There's another guy on the tweet. I don't know what his name is, but he always has pictures of. He's also in pictures of like massive destruction around the world. He's like a bit of a sadist. He says, "Did you know this looks like this earthquake?" I don't know where he gets all these videos from.
Yeah.
He hasn't been on for a while. One day he had drowning sheep in a mud river. I was like, this is where our food is going. It's like, okay, do I really care right now? Why are you showing me this? But like all these groups, I mean, okay, let's talk about Ontario Place, the whole thing on Ontario Place, what they want done and what they don't want done, right? All these groups right now. I made a tweet. I wasn't being rude. I said, you know what? It's not enough having debates and conference talks and you want plans, but has it been passed? Has the government said we're going to take your plans? No, man, it's just what I want to know. And I didn't get an answer. I've been part of the conference groups a bit. The Ontario Place, Save Ontario Place, whatever, get back to Ontario.
Well, Ontario Place is partly owned by the province and partly owned by the city.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're different discrete pieces of land. So the province owns most of it. So the province can do what they want. Just like if you were the province and you owned Ontario Place, you could decide to build something there, right?
I gotta go in 1 minute. I gotta say bye. Yeah, gotta get cut off here. Anyways, I'll say thank you very much for having me on the show. It's great talking. We'll do another one before I'm gonna send you the videos. And thank you so much. I appreciate it. Lost track of time there. And have a good weekend. We'll talk again. I love to talk.
Okay.
I enjoy your insight. I love talking to you. I love it. It's amazing.
Okay, good. Okay.
You should be in City Hall.
So should you.
I know. Okay. Green party, brown party.
Okay.
Have a good weekend, eh?
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Sheena. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye.